This year almost broke me, but my garden never stopped growing. This has been one of the toughest years I've ever lived through, both mentally and physically. There were nights I genuinely didn't know how I was going to get up and do it all again the next morning. And as usual, I bit off way more than I could chew with this garden. But honestly, it doesn't even stop there. It feels like everything decided to go wrong at the exact same time. First, I committed to tearing out half my beds and rebuilding them from scratch. Then we got hit with the wettest spring on record, and it drowned out nearly every seedling I had started indoors. After that, I decided it was finally time to put in a proper irrigation system, which turned into weeks of digging trenches by hand. And on top of all of that, I still had to replant almost everything I lost, twice. And it's not just the garden. I've had a lot happen in my personal life this year too, changes I'm still processing, that I'll talk about more down the road when I'm ready. I've been putting in 70, 80-hour weeks for years now, just to keep all of this running. The filming, the editing, the digging, the weeding, the watering at 5 in the morning before work. Nobody helps me do any of it. I still have a full-time job I show up to every single day. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I just started running on empty, burning the candle at both ends for way too long. And to top it all off, we're in the middle of one of the driest, hottest stretches this region has seen in years. I am drenched in sweat just standing here talking to you. And I know some of you are thinking, nobody's forcing you to do this. You could scale back. You're running yourself into the ground for a hobby. And look, you're not wrong, but here's the truth. This garden is the one thing that has kept me standing this year. Everything else has felt like it was falling apart, but out here, with my hands in the dirt, something still makes sense. Unbelievable harvest. Yes, I took on way more than I should have this year, but I have to tell you, it has paid off in ways I never expected. Putting in that new drip system was brutal, days of trenching in the heat, but look at what it's given me. I have never had a tomato harvest like this in my life. I have pulled in hundreds of pounds already, and I haven't even topped these plants once. This isn't disease you're seeing on the lower leaves, that's just natural dieback. That's what happens when tomato plants are allowed to just go wild. And they are still setting fruit all the way up, even with temperatures pushing past 95 most afternoons, which almost never happens 2 years in a row here. I am completely buried in tomatoes right now, it is unreal. And wait until you see the cherry tomato rows. This is where it gets ridiculous. There are thousands of them back here, more than you could ever count. I already picked a huge batch before I even started filming, because I needed to make a batch of sauce before they went soft. Look at all of this. And because the new irrigation keeps water off the leaves and fruit, I'm not losing nearly as many to splitting and cracking like I used to. The productivity this year has genuinely shocked me. Peppers gone wild. Then there are the peppers, and they are having an absolute field day with all this heat and consistent watering. These plants are already chest high, and they refuse to stop producing no matter how much I pick. I've already canned jar after jar of hot sauce, and the habaneros haven't even hit their peak yet, so I know what's coming. I keep the sweet peppers on one side and the hot ones on the other, because trust me, mixing those up is a mistake you only make once, especially when I'm handing these out to family and neighbors. One thing people don't always realize about peppers, the more you pick, the more the plant produces. So if you want a constant harvest, you actually have to go out there and stay on top of it, because it's tempting to just let them hang. If you want them red, you have to let them sit longer. That's why red peppers cost more at the store. But if you're okay with green, you'll get way more total fruit over the season. These banana peppers alone have been absolutely non-stop. Struggles in the side beds. Now, one of the areas that gave me the most grief this year was my side container beds. Unlike the main garden, this area only has partial shade coverage, so these plants got hammered by direct sun most of the day. I lost close to a third of what I planted here, wilt, sun scald, you name it. I just wasn't able to get consistent water to them in time. Lesson learned for next year, I'll be adding proper shade cloth here well before the heat hits, instead of scrambling to catch up in the middle of summer. My squash had a much better run though. I've never had a summer squash plant survive this deep into the season without succumbing to vine borers, but this year, something clicked, and they're still going strong nearly 2 months longer than usual. My cucumbers are struggling with the direct afternoon sun, so I've got a second round waiting in the wings that I'll transplant once we get even a slight break in the heat. Greens and the late season push. The lettuce and spinach gave up on me weeks ago. That's just how it goes once real heat sets in. But my Malabar spinach has been an absolute champion, barely a scratch of pest damage on it, and it just keeps climbing. Meanwhile, my old bolted brassicas that I never bothered to pull are getting absolutely destroyed by cabbage worms, which is exactly why I need to rip them out before the next generation hatches and spreads. And the eggplant, I always forget how prolific these plants get once they hit their stride. I harvested a huge batch last week, roasted them down into a paste, and used it to stuff a batch of peppers alongside some of that fresh tomato sauce. One meal, 3 different crops from the same garden, and honestly, that's the whole point of doing all of this. Fruit tree heartbreak. But it hasn't all been wins. My fruit trees took a beating this year like never before. My citrus, which I usually count on to sail through without issue, got badly stressed by an unusually harsh cold snap back in the winter. Then, just as they were recovering, we slid straight into this drought, and my soil just does not hold moisture the way I need it to. So even with irrigation running, I've had massive fruit drop across almost every citrus tree I own. These are the trees I rely on for fresh fruit in the dead of winter, and this year, there's barely going to be anything to pick. One of my satsumas that looked half dead back in February has actually bounced back beautifully in terms of foliage. It's just carrying almost no fruit, maybe a dozen where I'd normally get hundreds. My lemon tree set an incredible bloom this spring, and then the drought took nearly all of it. It's heartbreaking watching a tree do everything right and still come up empty because the weather refused to cooperate. The one bright spot has been a smaller mandarin hybrid planted closer to the house, in soil that clearly retains moisture better than the rest of my yard. That tree is absolutely loaded, more fruit than I've ever gotten off it, and that right there is exactly why you plant a variety of things. Some years, certain trees are going to fail you no matter what you do, but something else will usually step up and carry you through. A surprising comeback. But if there's been one true bright spot in the orchard this year, it's my persimmon trees. They could not care less about the drought or the heat. They are absolutely loaded, branches bending under the weight of fruit. I've been watering them through the worst of it, and it's paid off completely. As long as the raccoons don't clean me out before harvest, I'm going to have more persimmons than I know what to do with. And then there's the real surprise. My young pawpaw tree, only in its 3rd year, has fruit on it for the first time ever. I didn't think it was old enough, and I wasn't sure it even had a pollinator nearby. But somehow, against the odds, there are actual pawpaws forming. I've genuinely never tasted one from my own yard before, so if I can keep the wildlife away long enough, this might finally be the year. I'm completely wiped out, but... So even though this has been one of the most exhausting, demanding years I've ever put into this garden, I'm also walking away with one of the best harvests I've ever had. The tomatoes, the peppers, the eggplant, it's more food than my family and I could possibly eat, and I've been giving so much of it away. My citrus took a real hit this year, but that one loaded mandarin tree is going to carry me through winter regardless. And getting my first ever pawpaw harvest after everything else that's gone wrong, that felt like the universe throwing me a bone. I have to slow down. But I have to be honest with you, I can't keep doing this at this pace. When I started this journey years ago, I had more energy, more free time, fewer responsibilities pulling at me from every direction. Now, between the day job, the filming, the editing, and everything it takes to keep a garden this size alive, I barely have a moment to myself. And it's not getting easier, it's getting harder every single year. On top of that, the way people find videos online keeps shifting towards short clips instead of longer content like this, so it's tougher than ever to get something like this in front of people who would actually appreciate it. If you're one of the people still watching long videos like this one, it genuinely helps more than you know when you like it, subscribe, and leave a comment. That interaction is what keeps this kind of content alive in a world that's drowning in quick, low-effort clips and AI-generated nonsense pretending to be real experience. What I want you to take away from this. I wanted to share all of this with you, the good, the bad, and the exhausting, because I think a lot of you look at a channel like this and assume it must come easy, that I've got it figured out, that I've got help, that there's some secret. But there isn't. I'm just one person with a full-time job, doing every bit of this myself, on a modest budget, filming and editing everything alone late at night when I'd honestly rather be asleep. And I want you to know, I struggle with this constantly. Some days it feels like a weight I can't put down. Today it's miserable outside, I'm exhausted, and the last thing I want to do after this is go sit down and edit for 3 more hours. But I do it anyway, because I know that if I let it go now, all the work I've already put in goes with it. And if you're feeling that same kind of burnout in your own garden right now, please don't give up on it either. Even if it's too hot to work during the day, go out in the early evening, spend 20 or 30 minutes doing the basics. Water what needs water, pull a few weeds, toss some shade cloth over what's struggling. That's enough some days. That's genuinely enough. If you're new here and wondering how any of this got built in the first place, I've got playlists linked below that walk through the entire journey from the very beginning, every raised bed, every structure, every mistake along the way. So while this year has pushed me further than I thought I could go, most of the hardest work is already behind me now, and I really do plan to scale things back a little next season. I think I'll cut my tomato plantings down by at least a quarter, now that I know what my irrigation setup is actually capable of producing. I hope you got something out of this today. And if you're feeling stretched thin in your own life right now, just know you are absolutely not alone in that. This heat, this exhaustion, it doesn't last forever. In a few weeks, we'll all be complaining about the cold instead, and somehow that always sneaks up faster than we expect. So don't wish this season away waiting for an easier one. Just keep showing up, even a little at a time. If you enjoyed this one, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.